All right, this is 5th grade, Module 3, Lesson 1, where we're going to be talking about equivalent fractions. And really, heads up, fair notice, this is largely a review of a grade 4 standard. We are, however, in this lesson going to go pretty quick because we're going to do these equivalent fractions with number lines, the area model, and using just plain old numbers. And the idea being, let's say we have 2/3, and the idea is we want to be more thoughtful than to say, well, if you multiply the top number by 4, then you have to multiply the bottom number by 4, as a way of explaining that 2/3 and 8/12 are equal. So we want to be more thoughtful than just a rule. Well, if you multiply the top by 4, then you multiply the bottom by 4. All right, so that's why we're going to be doing number lines, area model, and then just plain old numbers. All right, in this problem it says to use a folded paper strip to mark the points. And really what they're saying is they're talking about this line here, this blue line. And we're going to label this way over here. We're going to label this as a 0. Way over here we're going to label this as a 1. And then we're supposed to cut it into thirds, which means we're going to use just 2 horizontal lines, and that gives us thirds. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit and then label this 0/3, and then I'm going to scooch this over, and that's going to be 1/3. And let's see if I can make the ink a little bit thicker there. 1/3. There we go. Then I'm going to label this one 2/3. And then finally, I'm going to label this 3/3. So the idea is, oh yeah, look at that. 1 whole is equal to 3/3. All right. And let's zoom back out a little bit here. All right. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to cut these area boxes, these boxes right here, into thirds. And then we're going to use horizontal lines. So the idea is, so let's start by cutting each of these into thirds. So I'm going to go boom, 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 boom. So I'm going to cut each of them into thirds. And I'm trying to make them pretty equal, right? Equal thirds there. All right, now, and then let's see, do we have to shade them in? No, we don't. Okay, good. So now, well, let's shade in one of these thirds. So let's shade this guy as a third, and let's shade this guy as a third. So what I've done is I've drawn a third 4 times. Okay. Now, in this first rectangle right here, it's really a square, but this first rectangle, I'm going to cut it in half horizontally. Boom, 1 cut horizontally. And you can see what used to be a third right here is now 2 pieces. Instead of just 1 out of 3, it's now 2 out of 6. So we now have 2 out of 6. And so that's what you see down here. 1/3 is equal to 2 out of 6. All right. Now let's go over here, and if we cut this in one line to cut it into 2 pieces, now we're going to cut it into 2 lines and to turn it into cut it with 2 lines and turn it into 3 pieces going horizontally. And what we see is what used to be 1/3, this guy used to be 1/3, but now it's 3 pieces out of 9. So it's now 3 pieces out of 9. And that's because 1/3, what happened is we took the 1 and the 3 and we multiplied each of those by 3 pieces. By 3. And where did that 3 come from? The 3 came from by the fact that we drew these 2 red lines, cutting each big piece into 3 smaller pieces. All right. And then now we're going to draw 3 lines over here. 1, 2, 3. And so I'm going to get down here. What used to be 1/4, each of those pieces got cut into 4 pieces, and we now have 4/16. And if you don't believe me, we just have to look. Let's see, right here. So this used to be one big piece out of 3. Oops! That's supposed to be a 3 right here. And that's supposed to be a 3. I hope somebody caught me on that. There. So what used to be one piece out of 3, boom, these big tall towers here, when we cut it up, that one piece out of 3, each of those were cut into 4 smaller pieces, and it became 4 pieces out of 12. Here's our 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces out of 12. And then the last piece, we're going to cut it with 4 pieces, or 4 cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what used to be, and I'm going to squeeze it down here, 1/3, each of those got cut into 5 smaller pieces. So we now have 5/15. And sure enough, I'm just going to do it right here. Here's our 5 pieces out of 15 total. So now they want us to continue this idea, only now we're going to do it with 4/5 right here, 4/5. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut each of the, well, let's start with the line. Let's start with a line, and there's 0, there's 1, and now we're going to cut it into 5 equal-sized pieces. This is always tricky. Let's see if I can do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's pretty darn close to 5 equal-sized pieces. And we can label this. This is 0/5, this is 1/5, this is 2/5, this is 3/5, 4/5, and 5/5. And now we're going to cut each of these squares into fifths. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now what we need to do is shade each of those. We need to shade 4/5. And so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to repeat that. So now I have 4/5. And first one, way over here, we're going to cut it into 2 pieces. Using one horizontal line, we're going to cut it into 2 pieces, kind of a top and a bottom. And now we're going to cut it in over here with 2 horizontal lines. There's 2 horizontal lines. Then we're going to cut it into 3 horizontal lines. And finally, we're going to cut it into 4 horizontal lines. And so that is Grade 5, Module 3, Lesson 1, where we were making equivalent fractions, but we were using number lines and the area model to understand that numerical algorithm. The concept being, if you start with a fraction like 3/4 and you multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the same number, let's say 5 in this case, then you'll get a new fraction, but it is the exact same, it's equivalent. It's the same amount that's shaded in, if we're talking about the area model, or it's the same location if we're talking about the number line. It's an equivalent fraction to the original.